Hey guys, and welcome to another video with Lykkelilje. In this video I'm gonna share 10 tips with you guys that can hopefully improve your drawing skills. And let me just say that I am by no means a professional drawing teacher or art teacher, so this is simply some tips that I have learned along the way, and I really hope that they can help some people out there. So let's get started. My tip number one, as you may have guessed, is to make a thumbnail, preferable more than one, because this helps out a lot finding out how to compose your image. And even though this is just a portrait, it really helped me out a lot. My tip number two is to sketch lightly, and this applies both to traditional artists and to digital artists. If you are a traditional artist, this means that you shouldn't press too hard with the pencil because you won't be able to erase or you may break the paper. And as a digital artist, this means that you should lower down the opacity when you are sketching so that you are able to sketch more than one time on top of each other. And this is really helpful and something that I have learned along the way. I have always been sketching really lightly on paper, but to sketch lightly on the computer is something I have learned recently. My tip number three is to use reference photos, and the more reference photos I would say you use, the better, because if you only use one reference photos, that can be a bit of copying. But if you use multiple or just reference photos for a part of the drawing, that's the best. But it's really a helpful part because, for example, if I had to draw a lion, I would have no idea how exactly a lion looked like, and I would probably draw it more as the lion from the Lion King, but that's just it. My tip number four is to break down the drawing and use construction line. And I have met a lot of people within the past few years that said that construction line wasn't for them and they couldn't use it and that it didn't work. And I just say that that's probably because you haven't used it that much, because I had a really hard time using construction line in the beginning myself. So that's just something you have to learn. My tip number five is to take your own reference photos, because sometimes it's really hard to get the image that you want or find the image that you want. So here, for example, I had my boyfriend take a photo of my hands so that I could get the hands in the right way, and that I use that a lot, especially with hands, because they're really hard to get and they're just some of the hardest part in the drawing, and it looked really awful if they're not right. My tip number six is to turn the page when you're doing the line art and also when you're doing the sketching. And if you're doing digital art, you have the advantage that you don't really have that easily in traditional art, and that is you can flip the canvas so that you can see how it looks in a new way. It's sort of taking your art, putting it aside for a few weeks, and then look at it again and see how weird and wrong that the face, for example, is. And when you're doing the line art, it's really helpful to turn the page to get the lines as smooth as possible, because normally your hand has certain angles that it won't draw a straight line in, and it's just really awful. And that's of course something you can practice, but still, even though you have been drawing for several years, this can be really hard, even for me, and I'm 25. So, and my tip number seven is to not just draw one thing. Meaning, if you love drawing horses or you love drawing animals, you should also try and draw humans for a change. And for my sake, that means I sometimes draw men, or I sometimes draw houses and cars, really few cars, but sometimes they sneak in there. And it helps a lot if you want to improve your art style. It helps a lot drawing different things, because you can get really stuck in one way of drawing a thing. So I normally draw a lot of girls and they tend to look the same, so I should probably listen to my own advice. My tip number 8 is to create a color palette, and in this case I'm doing it a bit different than I normally do, because normally I just fiddle around with the colors until I get it right. But for the sake of this video, I made small copies of the drawing and then I roughly just put in the colors, and this really helped out finding out what colors you should use in a fast way. And you will see, if you have been following me on Instagram, that I do small color palettes that I place in the corner of the image. For this video I did not create that color palette, I just took the finished color palette that I made here, and I made quite a few, and I knew that I sort of wanted her to be red-haired, but I still tried out different version of her just to make sure that I was right about my first intuition. And I really like the colors that I ended up picking. I sort of went with a frozen theme with the snow, and at the same time the hair is almost as Merida from Brave. And yeah, that leads me up to my tip number 9, and that is to decide where the light source is. And that is a great idea, and it's sometimes a bit hard, and even I still have a struggle getting the right shading and light. But if you don't decide on where the light source is before you start shading, it just turns out even weirder. My tip number 10 would be to draw on a regular base, and I know you probably heard this a million times before, but that's sort of the only advice in this video, if you should take any advice, that I want you to really remember. Because some people think that drawing is a talent that you're born with, but it's not. It's something that you learn along the way, and it takes years of practice to get really great. And people sometimes tend to forget that, and it can be really annoying that people just assume that since you're good at drawing, you have always been good at drawing. And yeah, so practice, practice, practice. And I know it sucks, but if you really love to draw, you shouldn't stop. And you shouldn't stop even though people tell you that it's weird you're drawing. If you love it, don't stop. That's like the main thing of drawing, is don't stop. No matter what, if you really like it, don't stop. And I actually don't really have a lot more to say to this video, so I really hope that one of the advices will help you out in the future, and that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please remember to hit that subscribe button. I post a new video every Friday, but if you want to be updated more frequently, I also have a Facebook and an Instagram where I post images during the week, and I post sneak peeks of my videos. So if you want to see more of that, stop by my Instagram or my Facebook to see more. And if you want to buy any of my art, I also have a Redbubble shop, and of course all of it will there be a link for in the description down below. And until next time, take care and bye bye.